entrepreneur, do you ever feel like you're on this emotional roller coaster and that the people around you don't have a clue what you're going through? Because every day is a new day. And today I have Kate Stinson joining me on the show to talk about entrepreneurship and the journey that she's been on. So Kate, welcome, calling in from Kentucky. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. So Kate, before we really jump into questions and dive into your entrepreneurial journey, give us a little background on who you are, what you do, why you chose entrepreneurship, because that is not for the faint of heart. So give us some color on this.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I went to Xavier University in Cincinnati a very long time ago. And the first year I was there, they had rolled out a entrepreneurship major. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was like, oh, I'll double in entrepreneurship and marketing, not having any idea I'd ever actually use it, nor do I know if I have actually used everything from that. But maybe I manifested it through that. I don't know. But I started my career working for MGM Resorts in Las Vegas, Nevada. I was an analyst for them in the gaming space, which was really cool. And then I came back to Louisville, Kentucky, and started working for a marketing agency, which I helped grow. And through that agency, I met my now business partners, and we have formed a handful of businesses together. We sold a golf tech app to Foresight Sports last year. And then now I'm focused on our new startup, which is called Chip In, where we raise money for nonprofits through like fun, short virtual golf games.
Oh, fun. Well, I'm a big golfer, so.
Oh, well then we'll definitely have to talk about that later. Yeah.
No, and when I saw Chip In, I was like, oh, hey, very cool, right up my alley. Yeah, and I'm finding a lot of more and more women are getting into the simulators and practicing more throughout the winter season. I have a whole group of ladies now that are always like, hey, you want to go golfing? Which I love.
Yeah, there's so much content right now from female golfers that I love because women are getting into the sport. And then also too, off-course golf surpassed on-course play a couple of years ago. So more people are, playing at ranges, playing on simulators. There's even golf courses giving up 9 holes to make more range space. So I think the way that people golf is changing. Yeah, they want more fun, more bite-sized. People don't have 9 hours every day to, play 18. So yeah, it's a fun time to get in. So.
Well, and that is a great point that you bring up. And I think that's probably, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, but that has held a lot of women back from participating in golf because the length of time that it takes.
Length of time. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's just very boys club and, who you're going to play with and getting friends to go. And so, but it's so fun and you have so much time to like talk. I've got a lot of friends that play tennis and it's like, yeah, but when you golf, you get to hang out too.
Yes.
So I prefer it, so.
Well, I'm with you. I love being out in nature, the walking, all of that is, and the camaraderie, like it's amazing, right? Especially because golf is such a head game. Like it really forces you to compartmentalize and de-stress a little bit from the day-to-day work, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, in your career, what's been a moment that looked successful on the outside, but maybe internally you were like, oh my God, my world is crumbling. Things are falling apart, but I have to keep up this image. So walk us through what that looks like or what it looked like for you.
The thing that comes to mind for that, and unfortunately it coincides with the time that I felt the most pressure to feel endlessly composed as, a female leader, was running and growing a marketing agency. So I had a marketing agency in Louisville, Kentucky. We were growing. I 2x'd revenue when I got there. So people were seeing like new client, bigger clients. I had tourism background, so we were getting tourism clients, which was really fun. But on the billable hour model, more growth means more headcount. And so the stakes just get higher and higher. So outside, it looks great. We're growing, we're hiring, our space looks fun. But for me, the pressure to retain the clients, to get new clients, to kind of feed the beast was a lot, and I took it very seriously that everybody that I hired, they have a family. They might have kids, you're responsible for their income. So I think it felt fun. It looked fun. But for me, it was like the most highest pressure career time that I had.
Absolutely. And there's that whole piece when you were just talking about, you grow your team, you've got more. And, oftentimes entrepreneurs have not been in leadership per se. And so all of a sudden you're growing your business, you're trying to keep the pipeline full, but you're also trying to figure out, how do I lead people? How do I keep them engaged?
Yep, exactly. So you're wearing so many hats because you're trying to grow the business. So growth and sales. And then you do that. And now you have the business and now you have to operate at a whole different level that you haven't before. So yeah, so it's just every day is a learning curve and every day the stakes get a little higher.
So how did you keep your sanity, let's say, as you're growing, and also you personally are growing, but the business is growing? And what were maybe some of those challenges that, you felt like, wow, like this is really hard?
Right. Well, I didn't always keep my sanity. I think
Okay.
that was probably the bell curve where I was like,
Mm,
hey, I don't feel well. I don't feel healthy. I'm not taking
mm,
care of myself. I'm working constantly, which I think for me was a turning point. So I was like, okay, I'm not good for anybody else if I'm not taking care of myself. And that's why I talk a lot now about, avoiding that. There's kind of this like founder chaos culture that
mm,
people like. It's not good for you and it's not good for the business. So I
yeah.
think this is the kind of the moment that broke me. I was like, okay, I cannot seem perfectly composed anymore. I need to prioritize my well-being and I need to ask for help if I need it. And so I think that was probably a good turning point for me.
Well, I think that's a very important comment that you just made, because often we don't ask for help, right? And we want everybody on the outside to think things are, successful, things are growing, and it probably is. But internally, it's like, okay, how much more capacity do I have?
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. And I
yeah,
think for me too, it's hard to build relationships with people when you're just like this work corporate robot. And I
yeah.
think I had put so much pressure on myself that when you are vulnerable and authentic with people, they'll give you so much more. And that's when you really get to like build a team and know people. So I think taking down that wall for me at that time too was really helpful.
Okay. Good, good. Well, and I think that's a good lesson for our audience, right? If you're an entrepreneur, or if you're even in a corporate environment, right? It's really making sure you're taking care of yourself, but building those connections.
Yeah.
So during COVID, you lost a business, right?
Hmm.
Something many entrepreneurs experience, but rarely talk about openly. It's hard to
Hmm.
say, "Oh, it wasn't successful." So what did rebuilding your confidence actually look like behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think that it was just step by step. So taking the next step, luckily I had a couple of opportunities to jump right into with previous business partners and a couple of clients from our marketing agency that we had. And so, it was just like one foot forward. And for me personally, I tried to really bifurcate, okay, what was me? What
Mm,
was my role in that? What could I have done differently? And how do I learn from that? And then bifurcating, okay, this other stuff was not me. I'm going to put that
mm,
down and I'm not going to carry it because it's not helping me. It's just making me feel less confident. So I think for me, compartmentalizing a lot of that was
mm.
helpful. Have a talk with yourself, move on, so and then just take action steps because day by day, as you're building something else and things are going well, you're slowly rebuilding your confidence.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's such an important thing. If you can take that pause and you can step back and look at this as, what did I learn? How do I take the good things with me forward? How do I course
Mhm.
correct where I need to course correct? I think that's a very important, no matter what situation that is in life, right? Because there's always something that we can take from it.
And I think too, for me at the time, I had never had that high of a head count and I learned a lot about leadership. So I also thought, okay, this is a chance to take everything I've learned, but also start fresh with a different version of myself that I want to
Mm,
be, like shed some of those things that maybe I'd grown out of because there's a new business, new people, and all of that. So I kind of just looked at it as like a really good fresh start for myself.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's really good. So let's talk a little bit about women in leadership and this pressure that we put on ourselves.
Hmm.
We often feel like we have to appear endlessly composed. I'm guilty of this myself, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like, and people go, "Oh, Vicky, you're always put together," and it's like, "Oh, I'm not really. I
Yeah.
have my moments." But we're carrying this enormous uncertainty and emotional weight privately. So, what's
Hmm.
your I'm trying to think how I want to ask this. What's your sort of your go-to when you're feeling all of that and you feel like, oh, there's only certain people I can talk to about this, but how do you regulate it? How do you normalize it so that you can keep going forward?
Yes, I think number one, I do, have always worked in male dominated fields,
Mhm.
and I've always been really lucky to have a great group of female friends. And
Mhm.
so I will often look to them to like gut check myself, hype me up, all the things. And I think that's really helpful. Your career is important. It's very important to me, but it's also not the end all be all. So, having value in other facets of your life definitely takes all the pressure off of your career. So I think that's been really helpful. And then I think too, for the being endlessly composed and the pressure piece, I had almost an entire male executive team when I worked for MGM Resorts. And unfortunately, it was like right when I'd accepted a position at a different hotel, we had a new VP come in, and she was a female, and she was just a total badass. She had a big personality. She was funny. She was really smart. And I thought, okay, she's really being herself and she's figured it out. And she had like extreme respect from the entire team. And it was that opposite view of like this perfectly stoic, composed, I'm going to be one of the guys. She was not, she was herself. And I saw it work for her. And I thought, okay, I'm going to start being more myself. I don't think this like mask is doing me any favors of trying to be perfect and not stressed and everything all the time. So I think, finding people that you can go, okay, that's what I want, kind of seeing a strong female leader emulate it is super helpful.
Yeah, I would agree on that. And, that's something I hear a lot from clients today is, I don't have a role model.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to go outside of your own business to be able to find those role models.
Definitely.
Right. But so I want to talk a little bit more about this, endlessly composed. Like where does that come from? So if you think about your history or, your career, your upbringing as a child, where does this ideology come from that you have to be perfect and you have to be endlessly, composed for people?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer. I know for me, I'm in my early 40s. So I'm an elder millennial and a firstborn daughter. And, I was right in that generation where it was like women can do anything. But then also we still have the stereotypes of like, but keep a clean house and, have kids. And so you're trying to go, okay, they're giving me this thing I can reach for, but I still got to do all these other things. And so just that pressure, because you might disagree with me, but like, you really cannot have it all. Life is about choices. You have to decide, for me, I work a lot, but a non-negotiable is I'm not going to miss my son's baseball games. And so that has to be I'll miss other things sometimes, it's all about choices and everything. But there was this almost pressure of you can have it all. Like you're supposed to strive for that. And it's impossible. So I think for a lot of women my age, we all feel that way. And we were just kind of like right place, right time of like, the world was trying to shift in a good way, but for us, it stuck us in the middle a little bit of like trying to be all of it. So,
yeah. Well, and I think that's such an important conversation. And I have a lot of emerging leaders, I would say, ask that question, like, how do you have it all? And I love how you describe that, Kate, because it is about choice, right? You can have it, but then you may have to have more support, right? You may have to have a family member move in. You might have to have a nanny who can help, or somebody who's doing your grocery shopping for you. I mean, that's how online grocery shopping has really come to be, right? Because we don't have the time to run to the grocery store and pick up the things that, we need for the week. So I do think that it is personal choice, and it's figuring out how do you navigate that. And I love what you just shared about it's a non-negotiable to go to my kids' activity, right? And it should be. Like, we put a lot of time, energy, and effort into our careers and the work that we do, but our families are very important to us. And so it's figuring out which ones can you miss, which ones do you need to be at. It might not be every single one.
Exactly. And also too, that whole saying of, everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. No, they do not. No, they do not. Because I have more help than anybody I know. I have 2 grandmothers in town and, siblings that will help with childcare. And my husband is like, we share the workload. So, I can prioritize certain things that other people literally just don't have the option because of all the support that I have. So, yeah,
it makes a huge difference. But there's also support outside of your immediate family, right?
Definitely.
Like I ended up being a single mom, not by choice, but my partnership broke up when my kids were 1 and 5, and I had no family because I live in Canada and I had no family here. And so I had to rely on people in my network. So I was so lucky. I found 3 sisters and they trained each other, which was perfect.
Nice.
So you figure out different ways to bring people in to be that support network.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So you've worked across gaming, golf, hospitality, startups, tech, industries that are traditionally male dominated. Was there ever a point where you realized you didn't have to become a different version of you to command that respect?
I think that I could have been more authentic early on. I feel to me that the pressure was coming, the call was coming in from inside the house. It was all me driving this pressure and trying to be a certain way. It wasn't anybody else. And so, I've had a couple of really positive male mentors that have also made me really confident in who I am and how I lead and how I operate. And it's helped me be more authentically myself, but there is a lot of pressure, especially when you're younger. So, when you're younger, and my favorite thing is always when you're the only female in the meeting and somebody needs to take notes and like all the eyes just shift to you,
Yes.
I don't know what that phenomenon is, but it's like, she's a girl, she should take notes. And so, when you're younger, that stuff's fine. And then as you grow and you're more confident and you're not the, most junior person in the room, you have to find ways to go, no, and like have those conversations. So I've had a lot of conversations with men, especially after I had my own team, to say privately, hey, we might want to think about certain things like this, because I don't think that's the precedent that we want to set as a company. I don't think the optics are great. So maybe rethink that. And I think through having those conversations, that's helped me be more myself too, because not one time have I had one of those, what some people might think are hard conversations. Not one time was it met with anything but just pure absolutely, or I didn't even think about it, or, if you catch me doing it again, let me know. And so I think that, realizing that everybody's not judging you, everybody wants to be better, everybody wants, it's more positive. And so instead of looking at people like, I've got to be perfect or I have to act like a dude because that's what they expect. No, they don't. And if you have some conversations with them and push back a little bit, you'll find that they don't, and so I think that helped me a lot as well.
Love that. Love that. I think that's a really important aspect of it, because you just provided feedback. So they understand how it's making you feel, right? So then they therefore know how to communicate with you in the future. And I think that's true even with things like when somebody overrides you or talks over you in a meeting, right? And this is something when I'm doing leadership development, that's one of the things I work on is these scenarios of, how do you take the power back? Right?
Yes.
If John speaks over you and says, "Oh, hey, yes, da 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 da," you can say, "John, thanks so much for expanding on my idea." Right? Instead of getting defensive and worrying about John's just trying to take the credit. It's not always the case, to your point.
Yeah, and this doesn't work for everybody, but for me, I would say, let's say something like that happened. I learned that I wasn't always great in the moment, but I would give myself a little time, and if I felt compelled later that day or the next day to still address it, then it's important to me and I will address it. And if by that point I go, that's not the battle I want to pick, or that wasn't that important, I'll probably let it go. But I recall a time where I had a male counterpart that constantly spoke over me, drove me nuts. And so he was one of the conversations that I pulled aside and I said, hey, we're presenting together to win business where these people are going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with us. And when you speak over me, it does not set a good precedence. It does not put confidence for them into me. And so, again, he did not consider it. Nobody had ever talked to him about that before, even though everybody else was quietly complaining about it. It's like, make them aware, have the conversation. And it definitely got a lot better after that. Not perfect, but manageable. So
yes. Yes. Yeah. And oftentimes it comes from a good intent. It's not malicious. So
no, it's like he was always excited.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the important part to remember. They're not personally, trying to make you look bad, but you do need to bring it to their attention. And that also helps them to be better advocates for you, right?
Yeah. And I think too, I'm kind of all over the place on this question, but I have obviously like a lot of thoughts on it because I have worked in male dominated fields. But when you talk about feeling the confidence, I think when you have the conversations and you realize they really care about your opinion, it does inspire a lot of confidence. You're like, okay, these people want me here. They're taking my feedback. That alone gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I want to go back to something you said earlier, because you mentioned how you would put on your mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a very true aspect for a lot of women when we walk into these environments. I've described it myself that way, that I put my suit of armor on. So,
Mm-hmm.
what did that look like for you, Kate?
It basically just looked like the whole I've got it all together. I
Mm.
remember one very specific incident where we had done a takeover of another company in hospitality, and I got put over people that their old manager, just not a great situation, a lot of like intense feelings. And I had just been having some weird health stuff, and I was wearing like a Holter monitor. It's like the EKG thing.
Right?
So, and everything was fine, but I had to wear like this shirt, and I had this the whole thing on the whole day. I was miserable. I was stressed, and my boss knew that. And I had a couple of different employees that were giving me challenges and everything. And he was like, "Well, did you tell them? Well, why didn't you say anything?" And he was like,
Mhm.
"You have got to like let these people in. Like, tell them you're having a bad day. Like, you are trying to be so I've got it all together that you're not connecting." And he was completely right. And that was like a big turning point for me. Because even when I was having like a medical issue, I was like, nobody will know because I'll be perfectly fine all day. And it's like, no one asked you to do that? So I
Yeah.
think he gave me some good advice on that one.
Yeah, that's a really important one because when people know, then they understand why
Mm-hmm.
you might frame things the way that you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're human beings. Like we all have moments in life where we're not at our full capacity, and
Yeah.
you want people to be empathetic to that.
Yep.
You still have a job to get done, right? But when they understand it, you have like I had a call with a client the other day, and she was talking about how she had to go do, some family caregiving. And she was talking about, she was like, the team totally stepped up. They did great. And I go, so, what were you worried about? She was like, well, I was
Yep.
worried things would fall apart. And I said, but your team totally stepped in and
Yes.
you now have that confidence in them that they can handle the load.
Yeah.
And
People want to help.
yes, exactly. Exactly. And that took a lot of pressure off of her to be able to care for, her family member that she was having to support at that time.
It's also too, it's not great for business if you are
Mhm.
setting the precedent that I know everything and I don't have concerns or questions, then the team is not comfortable speaking up, asking questions. And I think especially when I had other females that worked for me, it was like, okay, I can't have this bad behavior for myself because I'm setting a precedent that like this is okay, that we let people talk over us or we have it all together. So that kind of forced me also into going like, okay, I need to emulate what I want the culture to be.
Yeah. Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Very important. So you challenge hustle culture and you talk
Mhm.
openly about protecting your energy, which is so important so that you can be
Mhm.
fully on. So what do you think high performing women misunderstand most about burnout? And that's a very real phenomenon right now.
It really is. And I think for me, most of my experience is coming from the startup world
Mhm.
where like it feels like chaos is the goal and
Mhm.
founder hustle culture and energy drinks and not sleeping and like I worked 80 and I'm like that does not sound good for you. That does
Mhm.
not sound like your brain is, running optimally. So I think for me I had to take away some of that I'll call it guilt of, I used to have a lot more guilt if I was doing something on work time that was personal or if I didn't get into the office until 9 because I went to the gym, those make me a well-rounded healthy person, which is good for the business. And
Mhm.
so I think that, you're not your best self when you're working 80 hours a week. Like
Mhm.
that's crazy. And so I think that structure I set processes when we're so new we have two people, and it's like, do we need OKR frameworks for three people? Probably not, but let's start that because as we grow, we'll all be used to it. So I'm just a very like measured, disciplined person in that way.
Nice.
And I'm just now unapologetic for what I need to do for myself to keep myself the better version of me. So gym is a non-negotiable, time with my family is a non-negotiable, but I think it serves the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I think that's very important. And yet we still have a lot of organizations that have that mindset of, it's like wearing a badge of honor when you work
Yeah.
80 hours a week and not thinking about what is the true cost of that from a
Hmm.
mental, physical, emotional lens.
Yeah, and I think I wish I could remember the acronym, but there was just a big article going around about the new like work week setup with the tech startups. And it basically was like 4 12-hour days and like some weird, and I'm like, who did this? Who wrote this? Whose idea was this? This is not good for you, So I don't know. I just don't believe. I think if you need that to run the business, then something is wrong with the model. So
that's a great point. So you start to question the structure, the system, like why are we creating systems and structural mechanisms that perpetuate that 12-hour
exactly
days.
Yeah. You need to find a way to be profitable and grow without that, because that's not sustainable, and you're just you're just kicking the can down the road of whatever issue is causing that to be necessary.
Love that. So do you think that chaos can often be mistaken as ambition?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about that. What do you see in the startup world as it pertains to that?
So this is where I think also women get a bum rap, because a lot of like bro founder chaos, it's almost rewarded. It's cool for fundraising. It's just like all the hype and the energy. And a lot of times there's a lot to back that up, and sometimes there's not. Whereas I do think women founders have the extra pressure to be composed. Like they can't, they can't represent themselves in the same way, which I actually think is probably a good thing, because like we just discussed, I don't think it's good for you, but I do think it gets rewarded. I think that's what gets more online eyeballs. And I think that whole like male chaotic founder thing is still pretty prevalent.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And not just in entrepreneurship. That's in I think that's in
True.
every industry, every sector. It's like we wear that as a badge of honor. And that's a precedent that, we don't want to see happening. And I think, and let's talk about this a little bit, because during the pandemic, some of that shifted, right? And now we're in an even more accelerated situation. People were working from home. We trusted our people to work from home. And now it's like, nope, you got to be back in the office. And there's a lot of resistance to that. And so I just love to hear your thoughts on, what you've seen, what you've witnessed since the pandemic.
So this is where I will be vulnerable and say I struggle with this one, because I see all the sides. So on the business side, I think some people are great at working from home, and I think some people are not. Yeah. And so it's tricky to give everybody the same rules and expect the same output when people are so inherently different. And so it's a challenge. I also think that it does a disservice to people that entered the workforce during that time and never had the office. I mean, you learn so much. I made some of my best friends because we worked together all week long, in our 20s. And so I think that's a challenge. And then I also think that virtual communication, I am that annoying person that's like cameras on, not every single time. Yeah. Not every single time you got to issue your, I'm not going to say anything unless it's constant. And it's like, hey, people need to get to know you, especially when you are at a startup and you are building a team. You're already all over the world. You need to talk face to face sometimes. And so I think it's just a struggle. And I think every culture, you have to kind of figure out what works for you. The only thing I do feel solid about is that you have to everybody has to have the same rules. So like clarity is kindness. Talk about it when you interview. Keep the rules consistent. So everybody is on the same page about like, how often are we working from home? How often are we meeting? Are we expected to be like cameras on in meetings? That way nobody's surprised kind of by that. But it's definitely a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I see it too. And I think you've brought up some really good points there, because if you're entering the workforce and all of a sudden you're expected, right, to, work on your own, but you've got to make those connections. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow as an individual. Like when you were talking earlier about having such really great mentors and, people that influence the work that you were doing, that is hard to do that online. Not impossible, but you have to be super intentional about it if that's the direction you take.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So Kate, let's think about, we have a broad audience from all over the world listening in. So what might you want to share with the audience, to something to leave them with when they start to feel exhausted or uncertain, or like, oh my gosh, I just can't put one foot in front of the other again. What advice would you want to share with them?
A couple of things that work for me is like I mentioned, good group of female friends, rely on them, lean on them. When you're feeling like you're exhausted or you're low, spend more time with family and friends, like refill your cup. And then secondly, I have a female business partner that I've had for a few years now. We work really closely together. And so we are our accountability partners.
Nice.
We will do like annual planning, but it's much more about like who we want to be and what we want life to look like than it is, quarterly goals. And so, if I was going through that, I would definitely use her to like reset, to go, why, what's the why behind this burnout, so that you can figure out how you take action steps to actually solve it. Is it mental overload? Is it time? Is it the people around you, at your job? So, you can't really, to me, like start to reset until you go, okay, what's bringing me down?
Love it. Yeah. Very important comments. And where can people find you? If somebody, has questions about Chip In, or, you've done a variety of businesses, as we've talked about, if they have questions about startup, how to even get there, like where would they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Kate Stinson. You can find me there. And then also too, my email is kate@chipin.golf. Like, would love to connect. And, we're building something really cool. So if we have women listening that play golf and want to learn how to get involved, for me, this is really fun because half of our business model is driving money back to nonprofits, which is super rewarding. So, if anybody has questions about that or is interested, just hit me up on email.
Love that. And just before we wrap up, let's talk about that for a second. So why did you pick nonprofit? Like why was that the focus?
So when we had our previous app, that was it was a skill-based golf app. And we had charity as a big component of that. And it just took a little bit different of a direction as startups do. And it turned into more fintech, into more like super serious avid golfers, where my business partner and I really wanted a big philanthropic component to that. Golf is the most charitable sport. Golf scrambles alone drive $6 billion to charities.
Wow.
And so it's like, okay, if golf can do that on course with like 1% of golfers, what could we do for charities if we unlock it for everybody else? And so I've always given a lot of my time and money to charities. I'm a respite foster parent. Like the foster community is like my shtick, so if I can, grow this business and be successful for myself and my family and give money, back to foster programs, then like, I'm set. I hope this is my forever job. So.
Oh, I love it. I love that component, because you're filling two cups, right? You're filling your own cup by generously giving, and you're helping so many people. Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Kate, and thank you so much for joining us. Any other last parting comments you'd like to share with our audience?
I don't think I have anything else to say, honestly. So you've asked me so many good questions. Yeah. But thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. It was super, super awesome to have you on the show today, and just talking about, very energizing, just how you even look at business. So thank you for that. And audience, thank you for joining us. We're grateful that you continue to chime in and listen to the Will Talk podcast. As normal, I'm going to say, hey, if you're interested in figuring out your own leadership, visit us at Women in Leadership Empowered. Check out our leadership quiz. It'll give you a lot of great insight as to how you're showing up as a leader. And if I can help and support you in any way in becoming the leader you want to be, just reach out to me as well. It's Vicki@willempowered.com. So thank you, everybody. Have an amazing day. Kate, continue to be amazing success. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you for joining us for Will Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.